and I'm going to be talking today a little bit about communication and prioritization, two very critical roles for a product manager, and some skills we can use and some tools we can use. A little bit about myself. Again, my name is Tracy Lasseter. I've been a product manager now for a little over 4 years. My background is in project management and market research, and I have created and launched dozens of products for a lot of my clients, from small little startups to big international enterprises. And I am currently the product manager at Nursegrid for our Nursegrid mobile products. So, totally shameless plug here. A little bit about my company. Based out of Portland, Oregon, we have about 35 employees right now, and we're growing really rapidly. We're actually in the middle of a giant hiring round, so if anyone's looking to move out to lovely Portland, Oregon, let me know. I have some business cards up here as well. And my lavender oil spilled on them in the airplane, so they're now lightly scented and very relaxing. So we are a schedule and life management application with over 500,000 downloads. We are now the #1 app for nurses. We mostly focus on their scheduling, but we really stick to our tagline, which is nurse-life balance. So we want to make nurses' lives a little easier, let them not worry about their schedules, and help them feel like they are being taken care of. So a quick outline of what I'm going to be talking about today. We'll talk a little bit about communicating with stakeholders, defining who those people are, how we take in projects and features, and how we discover how to implement them. Prioritizing that feedback, so after we've discovered, after we've aligned, how do we break that down? Better understanding our user stories, a critical part of, I think, all of our lives. And then the tools of the trade, so some tools, some tricks I've used along the way to do my job better. And then I will have a little Q&A time. So I'm really big on participation. And so I would love to hear some insightful feedback from anyone, share examples of success you've had with your communication across stakeholders, ask some great questions of me, hopefully you'll stump me, and then you get a pair of compression socks. As you can see by one of our lovely users, our nurses adore our compression socks. They are amazing. If you ever are on your feet all day, I swear by them, so I've got 3 pair up here, and I will give them out at the end. So everyone wants to be heard. I think that's something we can all agree upon. Everyone wants to be heard, we want to be validated. But what happens when one person is saying one thing that they need directly contradicts someone else? And what do you do if that person is your boss? What do you do if that person is your developer? What do you do if that's your users? How do you align all these people? How do you get them to listen to you? And the truth is, well, you don't get people to listen to you. That's not your job. It's not your job to tell people what they're doing. So what is it that you do again? Has everyone seen this before? Yeah? Okay. I disagree with this completely. I don't think we sit in the middle. I think we are those lines around the outside. So we're the cycle, we're this communication tool, we're the feedback loop. So our main job is this. This is so important. Give our leaders and our teammates the information that they need to make their best decisions. That is what you need to focus on. And if you aren't doing that, then you're probably just calling the shots and you're not listening. People aren't being heard. So you need to find your voice. You need to be heard because you are representing all of your stakeholders. So you need to know your own strengths and your weaknesses when it comes to collaboration. I am a very outspoken person. I'm very large as a personality, and I look like this. So how do I get people, these big professionals, to listen to me and take me seriously and believe what I'm doing? And the truth is, I just work on empathy. So again, everyone wants to be heard. And I've learned along the way that sometimes the best way to find your voice is to shut up. That took me many years to learn, and it was a hard lesson for me to learn. But thankfully, I'm still working on it a little bit. But I have built a lot of trust with my team through listening to them, taking the time to hear what they have to say. And then, of course, you need to get to understand your stakeholders and how they like to communicate with you. Everyone has their own communication style, and I think it's important to be flexible to those different styles and be able to hear people at the level they feel comfortable talking. So who are your stakeholders? It's kind of a weird markety term, but it kind of covers everyone. It really is just the person or persons that are affected or that can affect or be affected by the actions of your business. So for my company, it's founders, investors, our C-suite, our board, of course, our customer success team, our sales and marketing teams, the developers, the designers, the PMs, and of course, our users. So I think it's important as a product manager to ask these big questions. The more questions we're asking, the more we'll reveal about things. So this is just kind of some questions I always cover, a little bit of context around what I'm, when I'm working through a new problem, a new feature, or a new product. I think one of the big ones is, why? Why are we doing this? Can you explain to me why we're doing this? Do you have that context? Product management is about translating, and I always think that we're translators. We can speak the languages of so many different types of people. So when you understand what gives each stakeholder, or what drives each stakeholder, you can align your needs across the entire organization. So here I've put together a little bit of the languages that I've learned along the way that people like to be heard. Of course, my CFO always loves to hear about ROI. That's his favorite thing. We actually just went through a whole round of trying to get Pendo on board. My team, my customer success team, was so stoked about Pendo and what they can do. My developers were so excited because they're like, I don't have to develop another tooltip. I am stoked. I am on board. Of course, then my friend Will back there sends my CFO the bill, and he leans back in his chair and laughs at me. So I had to go through and show him how much time our developers are spending on building out these tooltips and these guides, and how much that actually costs us as a company. I got him on board. So this is just one example of how that's worked for me. So I think that's just let's kind of take that with a little bit. So one tool that I use a lot to better understand my stakeholders are design sprints and prototyping. Has anyone ever done a design sprint? Yeah, good. So Google design sprints are really usually a 5-day process. It's a great way to quickly align your team, and you can work together to create and test out some different prototypes and some ideas that you have. What I've learned is that by involving all the stakeholders, you not only get some new insights, you get some fresh perspective, but what I found the most valuable feedback from sprints is that people gain empathy. So it's one of the few times that maybe a marketing person and a developer are sitting in the same room, or maybe it's a developer and a salesperson, two people that often butt heads, and suddenly they're seeing the struggles that they each have and how they are, the time and the effort it takes to build out these complex ideas. And so that's been a big thing in our company. Oh, question? Oh, good question. Yes. So nurses are a really hard group of people to nail down. They're very busy and they don't have a lot of time for us. So we try to meet them at their level. Typically, we can't bring them in on those days because of their schedules, but what we'll do is run through the sprints ourselves and then set up time with them to do some prototyping and walkthroughs with our design team. So creating requirements and themes. After we work through a design sprint, once we've discovered what we want to do, we've aligned our vision, we know why we're doing this, we've defined our problem, we do the sprint, we do a little prototyping, we do a little user testing, we get a little market feed map, and then we get to build out our roadmap. So this is kind of the basic roadmap breakdown that I've been using myself. My roadmap actually lives in our company on the wall. It's a public roadmap. I made it as my arts and crafts project. It was really fun. I recommend everyone do this. But I bought a bunch of I should have taken a picture, but I don't think they want me to share it outside the office right now. So I took a bunch of dry erase board, you can cut them out. They're like flimsy magnetic dry erase things. So I cut them out and made a roadmap that was color-coded based on those goals that we were trying to meet as a company. And I tried to align it across all my stakeholders so everyone can look at that board and say, oh, that's something that I really want. That's something that my users need or my team needs. It's what I need to close a deal. It's what I need to be more successful with my current users. And it's really helped my team to better understand what we're doing and the effort and the impact of what we're building. So user stories. Once you get your roadmap, you got what you're building. As a user, I know features need user stories. Does anyone else slowly start to feel like Dilbert over the years? Sometimes I feel like pointed hairy boss, and that makes me really disturbed. But anyway, As a user, so here's a really basic user story. I think we've all used this one before. As a user, I can sign up with email and password. And what's funny to me is that that seems simple. It seems pretty cut and dry, like, okay, email, password, they sign up. But I start to find all these questions. And again, questions, that's what we do. So do we need to validate? Are there multiple users per account? Who's allowed to sign up? What language props are we using? Are there multiple types of users? Is there a cost to sign up? Do emails need to be unique? How are we handling errors? And then on and on and on and on. So these are the questions that people might have, and it's really important to have context around your user stories. I can't tell you how many times I've written this simple user story, and then my developers come back with these gobs of questions. So I started to realize, I can't just tell people to build things. They need to understand what we're doing, and they need to understand all the different states of this feature. So when it comes to feature requests, context is kind of everything. So I don't know if anyone has ever seen this image. So there's an elephant, and there's some scientists, and they're all blindfolded, and they're each given a part to examine and figure out what they're touching. So this woman on the bottom is touching the legs, so she thinks, oh, it's sturdy, it's a tree trunk. This person is touching the pointy end of its tusk. He said, oh, it's a spear, that's what that is. And then this guy says it's a rope. But none of them are right, because they aren't working together. They're all working in these silos. And when I came into my company, I found a lot of this disjointedness of people not knowing what other people are doing. They don't know how we're aligning to meet our goal of being the #1 app for nurses to manage their lives. So focusing on just completing user stories can really lead to a myopic view of your team. It might not seem important that my marketing team sees my roadmap ahead of time, but they know what I'm doing. And ensure stakeholders understand the context of what is being implemented and how it fits into the product's vision. Prioritizing features. So I have used the action priority matrix. Has anyone ever done these? It's a grid. You do like a high value, low value effort. So you find these big wins by the low effort, high impact features. While I think this is a great tool, you do need to take it with a grain of salt. You can't just come up with these run them through this matrix and then just go, okay, we're going to build them in this order. That's not how it works. But I actually used it with my entire company. So I had our president and myself sat down and built out a matrix, sent it out to everyone in the company with some goals, some features, some things we've been tossing around as a company. We had everyone rate them. And what we found was that we were able to gain insight into what different departments thought was important and where we're aligning and where we're misaligning. So this is a great tool. I actually have a spreadsheet out there. If anyone's interested, reach out to me. I can send you the template for doing this project with your teams. So this is actually my CS team. These are the things that they thought were the most important things for them. So we did this as a big group, and then we presented it to the entire company. And it really allowed us to figure out where our goals are for this year and where our OKRs lie. Tools of the trade. So these are the things I think every product manager needs to have in place. Of course, a single source of truth for all stakeholders. Where do people go to find out what you're doing right now? For me, that's typically Jira. And yes, I actually have people outside of product check Jira, and I'm so proud of them. But that's always been a single source of truth. Of course, I am also that source of truth. So if people want to know what's happening, they could always come and ask me. Flexible and yet accessible roadmap. I think it's vital to let people know roadmaps are a guide. They aren't the be-all, end-all. But I do think it's important to share that with people and that they know, yes. Oh, that's a good question. So again, with my roadmap, everything is broken down into those different feature sets, and then I use the epics to define what goals they line up with. So all of the different tickets in Jira are tagged with those. I'm sorry? Back to a bigger picture, exactly. So everything that we work on as a product team can be sourced directly back up to our goals as a company. So I'm very transparent about that. And then, of course, on releases, we do a lot of sharing. This is actually our living room area at the office. We have learned, because we've gotten so large, we don't have a lot of meeting rooms left. So I've kind of taken to using the lounge area, especially if I have something cool, like a new feature we're looking at, or possibly going through some code review. My developers sit down here and use it for code review. And what we've noticed is that people will come and sit in and give insight, and they will participate in things that maybe they wouldn't have even thought of participating in. And it really just gives this clarity across all of our teams. This is my CS team presenting in the lounge now. So it's really been nice to see that. Also, it makes us look really good when people come in and they're like, look at them all innovating over there in the corner. So this is something we do on the regular. And you can also see I set up this relaxation station, I call it. There's a puzzle. We are excellent puzzlers at Nursegrid. Tracking workflow and workload, how you plan things out. My team works in sprints. I say we're agile with a lowercase a. So we mostly focus on 2 to 3 week sprints. Right now we're in a larger one because we're overhauling our onboarding. But I work with my team. Typically we do Fibonacci for our sprints. I don't like them to overthink that, but it does help me kind of figure out how much we can get done in a sprint. And that's worked really well for us. And clear documentation and sign off by all necessary stakeholders. This is especially vital for your support team, for them to understand these new features, know how to support them, update their support docs. And then, of course, company-wide show and tell and the feature feedback loop. Again, this is something I do at least once a week, if not every day. There is a time for people to come see what we're working on. And I actually set aside specific time, especially for the sales team and the CS team, where they can come to me, they can talk to me about their issues and their problems. Of course, they always have that time, but it's kind of like my open office hours for them to come and talk to us. So kind of a quick summary. Oh, yeah. Yeah, documentation, I typically do, I do Jira releases, so that's my release notes are in there. And then everything feeds back into my CS team, so they really do take care of most of my documentation now. Bless them. And then what was your other? Oh, the sign off. Yeah, that's also a good one because at this point I'm pretty autonomous and I basically get to do what I want. But because we do these show and tells and because we have this time where everyone can see, that to me is the sign off where I'm getting agreement. So it's not always a literal sign off. It's more of like, yes, we are all aligned. We all understand this vision. We know what you're doing and we're behind it. We'll support it. Yes.
When you have those disagreements or people who haven't seen or gotten on board with the vision, and they go to one of those moments where they should be signing off, how do you recognize that they may go through that and then still be saying?
Oh yeah, I mean, and that's the truth, right? Not everyone's always going to agree. But one thing that our team always focuses on is that we are all dedicated to nurses. So we like to step back and think, is this going to make a nurse's life better? Is it going to make it easier? Is this what they need? And that typically helps us kind of gain that perspective again. But you're right, it's difficult. So our apps, we have my mobile app is free to nurses, but then we also have a manager SaaS platform that feeds into that. So we have 2 different kinds of users. We have a free user base and our managed user base. Of course, sales always want those big enterprisey features that they can blast out and sell our managed app, but then we have to step back and go, how is that going to affect the end user? So that's been really great for us to kind of gain that empathy and then to show we're not putting your stuff aside. You know, there are priorities in place. So it's important to know why you're prioritizing certain features over the others and then to explain that to people so they have that context. So in kind of summary, and then we'll do some little Q&A and some deep thinking time. So find your voice by listening. And that voice typically is the voice of your product, is the voice of your company, and that's who you are. So you represent that part of your company. Understand what drives your stakeholders. Find out what their passion is. Find out what they want from you. Discovery is always a team effort. Everyone can be involved in discovery. You know, I even have HR sometimes sit in. Everyone is a part of this team. We're all building something to be successful. Think big, deliver small. So make sure that everything that you're delivering feeds up to your goals as a company, to your roadmap. Try not to veer off that, and you will be successful. Context, of course, is everything. Don't keep people in silos. Make sure that you're communicating across all stakeholders, across all departments. And then sharpen your tools daily. I'm always looking for new tools. I love the new product stack term. I'm like building my product stack. I can't wait to get back and think about the other tools we could be using to better close off our feedback loop. Q&A. I've got some, oh, yeah.
So I heard
That is a really good question. I think a lot of that comes down to, well, what tools are you using now to communicate?
Well, that's another problem. Yeah, we have lots of different tools that we're trying to kind of like come together and use one tool. But right now, I mean, we do like PowerPoint presentations where like we'll get, we'll send out, an invite to all the, stakeholders, and if they come, to talk about what's going on. I currently have what is called like a work stream where basically I have representatives from all the different areas that we're working with in a meeting, and it's just kind of a chance for people to ask us questions. We can ask them questions. We're dependent on some other teams to deliver things for us. That's kind of working, but I'm having trouble like getting buy-in and for people to come because everybody's got tons of meetings. Nobody wants another meeting. So it's tricky to like express that you want to come to this meeting. It's important and we need you there. But I mean, it's kind of working, but there's the other tools.
Yeah, that's a big one. I've run into this with some of my former clients when building out products. They would get to this point that they would kind of disconnect from what we're doing, and it got to a point that I'm like, how do I get them to be passionate again about this product? And like, you're spending a lot of money, you're building out something, this is going to be your livelihood, so why aren't you more passionate about what we're doing? So I set up more of like homework. So it was baked in to our process where they would have to spend time actively in the app, trying it out, giving us feedback. Otherwise, we would just stop production. So sometimes minor threats work, I guess. That's a terrible advice. But giving them that value, why do you want them in that meeting? Are there things that are going to affect their job? If they're not in that meeting, are they not going to get the features that they want? So finding out, I think during our keynote today, he's talking about that money. So throw that money on the table, like show them what they're missing out on. I think that's the kind of a harsh reality, but it's the only way to get people going is to have them see what they're missing. Question?
So you set a goal for this year and say this is our vision and what we're going to achieve, but then you have the roadmap and you have the projections. There are always like requirements from sales, and requirements from other teams, different talents, and then we prioritize things. So that in those cases, like how do you convince stakeholders like what should be done, or like, so I don't know like from your organization like hierarchy, but in terms of like satisfying the hierarchy, so how do you go about doing how to prioritize?
Yeah, that's a great question. So she was asking how we kind of prioritize all the input from all these different teams. And for our team, our whole company does OKRs for the year. So that's objective key results. I think everyone has built these. But that's really, and we have them per department, but they all feed up to an objective. So we have an objective and then we have key results for each department. And once we have that in place, it's kind of easy to make sure that we're all aligned on vision. So that does help kind of drive what I'm working on as a product, and by finding how I need to meet these key results to get there. And again, like I said, we focus on what we're trying to accomplish here. And my whole team is so passionate. It's a very passionate group of people, really driven to help nurses and fix healthcare and what's happening in it. And sometimes it's important for us just to step back and go, whoa, we're all trying to do the same thing, right? We're all trying to be successful. I'm not fighting with my sales team. We're on the same team. So I think that's really important to remember and to remind people of that. So if you have a goal, if you have a mission, if you have a vision as a company, hopefully you have a mission statement, remind people of that, and then be able to show why what you're doing feeds into that mission as a company. Any other questions? Yes. Oh, okay. She asked how many members of our team are former nurses. So our CEO and founder, he actually is a nurse. Our VP of marketing is still a nurse. He actually still picks up shifts here and there. And then our new VP of CS that is starting, I think, next week is a nurse as well. So we do try to hire nurses as much as we can. I think it's really great. People moving into different aspects of their life. I'm always looking to meet new, what we call nursepreneurs. They're kind of few and far between, but once you meet them, they're incredible people. Yeah. Sure. So our design sprints right now, we actually have only one designer right now. I'm hiring a designer if anyone wants to come work for me. So right now it's very collaborative. So we actually work with the engineers, especially our front end engineer. He for our website. He works really closely with our designer. They're pretty much together all day with their heads together working through the problems. So that's crucial for us, is to have developers early in the design sprint, so we aren't designing things that aren't going to make sense from a code standpoint. Getting that insight of, oh, why this certain button makes more sense than this one. And then after that, we do a lot of prototyping. My whole team signs up to do like different click-throughs. Our marketing team just launched a brand new marketing site, so we all signed up for slots to come in, and they would, give us a guide, like, what would you do if you wanted to do X? And then we would go through and do it. So we do a lot of internal user testing as well. Thankfully, like I said, we have nurses on staff, so we have people that can give us feedback from that nurse technical side. So we're using the right terminology, and we're putting things in the right place for a nurse. And then there's we get our nurses to also sign up, so to come and do like web interactives and do prototyping. We use InVision, of course, a lot for those in our low-res and high-res clickable prototypes. It really depends on what we're working on. If it's a big new feature, it kind of runs parallel, where the design sprint typically starts far ahead of time. We're planning, we're plotting, and of course I can't grab developers and take them off a project for a week. I think my CEO would kill me if I did that. So what we do is bring them in at those crucial points and just make sure we're touching back with them frequently as we move through the process. So we're working on a new product, our jobs board. So we'll be working through a design sprint for that in this next quarter, which I'm really excited about. So that should be really interesting to bring everyone into the team and get that feedback. Now I'm going to ask you questions. So what tools do you use to communicate with your stakeholders? What's working, what's not? Does anyone have any good examples? Yes?
We use Slack.
Slack?
It works sometimes, and sometimes it's all pretty going. It's all in how you use it. But it's a good tool to, we had the same problem with very geographic distribution, and it's a headache, and nobody likes meetings. So we try and create channels, and put some discipline around how you use those channels. I mean, it's the closest thing to what
Yeah, Slack has been a great tool. I've worked with teams across the globe, and Slack has been our universal spot to chat. Our company loves sharing things in Slack. We've also learned a good trick is to start using the threads, which I don't think are very intuitive. I still get them wrong and I end up commenting instead of threading. But it's a great way to better organize your Slack channels so that there's not all this like just chatter that people have to sort through to find that thing that they wanted to talk about. So that's a really useful tool. Anyone else have, so many ideas. Oh, he's not done yet. Oh, he's done. Okay, who had, yes?
Confluence. So we
Confluence.
Confluence coupled with Jira and Slack. Confluence is like the hub of everything that's for us, and it's great for Jira.
I will admit I do not use Confluence as much as I should. My CS team is killing it in Confluence. Again, I love my CS team. I will talk about them all day. So they're fantastic people, but yeah, they do a lot of our documentation in there, so that's where we can see those things. And I do keep like a digital version of the roadmap as well, so I just keep them both updated because not everyone's in the office and people might want to see it on the go. I think I saw a hand back here. Yes? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love doing the whole follow-up after the meeting email and someone championing that. So make sure that you're saying, this is what we went over, this is what we agreed to do, this is what we're doing next. It is shocking how impactful that is. And Pendo is a great example of that. If anyone is a customer of theirs and you sit in meetings with them, they are fantastic at giving you back that feedback and pointing out who's doing what action items once we get out of this meeting. Yes?
So for our distributed team, so we always have a heartbeat on the meeting. So what we do is send an upcoming email. So this month, this is what we're going to talk about, and that allows us to prioritize our meeting against all the other ones. And the other is we have distributed officers who would let team members fly around. So we want to get a weekend
Mhm. I do think it's critical if you're spread out to have some FaceTime here and there. I know that's costly, and yeah, we have video chat and things like that. But being in a room with people is so crucial. And I also like the idea of sending out, these are the things we're going to talk about, so people can come prepared. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a meeting and I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, why am I here? I'm just like, I just show up to things that are on my schedule and I have no context. Yes. Ooh, a night not working. Nice. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It sounds like you need that now. So how do you do that? I mean, who's going to champion that? And it usually falls on the product manager because, well, that is kind of our job. So that's something I worked with my company on. We had a lot of issues with, like, customer feedback is just flying everywhere, and bug tickets and random things in your backlog, and who knows what's where. So we set up a Slack channel that's closed off to the higher ups, because if they saw us talking about bugs all day, they would freak out. But it's a private channel. We have best practices on how you report into this channel. So CS, someone will post in, there's like a list. So it's like client type, the details, the urgency, the escalation need, and then the feedback of like what's happening with this bug, so that our QA team can go in, yes, validate it, yes, this is an issue. They create the JIRA ticket, post it back in that channel, and add the watchers, whoever posted that. So that's been a great way for us to kind of work through messy stuff, like all these bits and pieces using Slack, and then filter it down into JIRA. And this was an iterative process. We used to just have this Slack channel, and we would just kind of like posted bugs in there, and then we were like, okay, let's be a little more conscious of this. And you just need to get people on board with that and make them realize it makes it a little simpler if everyone's following those best practices. Yes. Yeah, we are definitely growing quickly as a company, and we felt those growing pains. And I think it's important to almost be ahead of that. So I'm setting up practices now for a team that's twice my size, because I know that day is going to come, and I need my team to be ready and on board with these processes in place. So my team right now, it's 4 people, plus I share the back end and the QA. So, we work a lot ad hoc. So, we're here, we're chatting, we're always communicating. But then I still need to write those JIRA tickets, because I still need to know, even if we just talked about and we fixed that bug, I'm still going to write out that JIRA ticket and put it in the release. So it's things like that, just having consistent process in place, and then iterating. So, add to it as you grow, and find where that communication is breaking down, and bring people back and say, hey, we have a problem here. There's too many people. How do we break this down into more digestible pieces? So this is a good one. So I love hearing about how people align stakeholders. So if anyone has a really great example of the last time they dealt with 2 stakeholders who weren't agreeing, and how you worked on that, and if it worked or not. So I don't know if anyone has an example of conflict and resolution. There's socks in it for you people. Come on. Nothing? Beck? Mm-hmm. 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 I'm really fucking offended by that. Okay, so. So it's true, and I think one thing we kind of get stuck in as product managers is because we're kind of that source of truth. People think they always just have to go through you, and I think you need to build that trust with all stakeholders to know how to communicate. And I do love when people first kind of come to me like, "Oh, hey, I'm having this issue," and then I kind of give them my blessing to go bother the developers with it. But I need them to do that. I need my CS team to sit with the developers because my CS team is the face of our users, and that's their bridge to the developers. They don't need me to resolve that conflict. And in fact, if I'm added in there, I'm just extra weight, right? Like you want those two people that maybe have been going through you this whole time. It's like, why don't you two just get together and do it yourselves because I have other things to do. So.
Well, and I care a lot about the outbound side of it, so like I'm happy to be involved, but like it's just not sustainable to constantly have like a Xbox UI, Xbox TV, and see if one never talks, so there's just overlap so closely.
Mm-hmm. How were you able to get those two people, the tech lead and your dev manager, to get along? Do they like not butt heads anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's an ongoing thing where it's just like trying to figure out roles and responsibilities and our product people that structure we have. But generally, I think it works a lot trying to figure out different people. But yeah, I think the key was just like let's have it all out at once.
Yep.
We use a radical error approach where I work, where it's taking care personally and down to direction. But I think it's just like let's have that conversation, get it all out, and then like reconvene and get your way, and stop saying like, oh, in October it might happen.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Any other examples? Yes.
You have the conflict that you noted earlier between the purchaser or administrator and the user, and that plays out a lot between engineering and sales and product.
Mm-hmm.
And the alignments are different with each feature. And so one thing we did is we found that people were coming into projects with different alignments, and they weren't always aware of where their priorities were. So we actually, and we also had documentation of the problem. So one thing was we used centralizing documentation at the beginning of the project. We started to explicitly explain what the stakeholders' goals are.
Great. Yeah, that's great.
We're working on it daily, and here are the people we're going to use right in, and why we want you to log in. And they almost always argue about it. But that was a ton that there was conflicts about, oh, but if you didn't want to move your data, or is it a user perspective? It was a conflict that was going to come at some point. And so by putting that front and saying, you're going to be our expert on this, it helped a little bit with those, just making those conflicts clear.
That's awesome. Yeah, our team recently are working on another partnership with another company, and my CEO got myself and two of my CS people in the room because we're going to be kind of leading this project, working with someone outside, and we just ran through 20 minutes. We're like, these are the things we want to get done. We whiteboarded it out. We're like, these are the outcomes we expect to see, and these are the people that are going to be involved. And then he's like, okay, which of you is going to be the point of contact? That's me. Who's going to be kind of managing the output of the info and the data? That's my program manager. And then we stuck our head of CS with the statement of work because we're like, that's what you get, because I don't want to write a statement of work. And that worked really well. And then we documented that all out. So we have that, and then we have the Slack channel specific to that project. So that also kind of keeps the noise down. So right away, we already know these are the things we want. This is what we expect to happen. And here are the people that are going to be doing it. So that's a great tool to have. Yes?
I'll make it because I know you forgot that. So another like problem that we have because we're all over the place. So I'm working on a feature that actually integrates a lot of areas of our product suite, which makes it a little bit harder for stakeholders and everything. But I'm actually in the middle of a conflict where we're trying to set up permissions for this feature, and it's one of those things where there's so many different people that a lot of people don't realize like how big this feature is going to be, and so they haven't really like taken into account when they're building out their features how to kind of get ready for us.
Mhm.
So I was basically on the phone the other day with people that are building permissions, and they were like, "Oh, we think you should do it this way and this way and this way." And we're like, "No, that's not going to work. You don't
Mhm.
And that would be, a huge problem not only for us, but for our users as well, because they're going to have to, manipulate and do all sorts of weird things. So I don't really have an outcome, but it's something that's in the middle, and it's something that I'm hoping to get resolved soon. But just kind of explaining, like laying it out on the table is exactly what I need, and just kind of, hoping that, it sinks in.
Yep, I think we kind of forget sometimes as product managers that we have like next year and 2 years, as well as the next minute and a month from now and a week from now, all in our head at the same time, and other people don't have that context. So it's good to go back to them and say, this is why we need this now because of later. That's something I work on with some of my enterprise customers who like to come to me and say, and we would like a button here, and then we need this gone, and we want this button to be orange, and they come with these solutions that they have. And so I try to wind them back and go, let's talk about why you want that, and then let me talk to you a little bit about what we're doing in the future that might resolve that problem for you. And that's really helping, like, oh, you already have this all figured out. Like, I don't even need to tell you that you need a button there. And I'm like, kind of like, yeah, that's my job, not yours. But that's another story. So that's really great. Do you have like a product roadmap for all of you?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we've got a product roadmaps for all of our features, and of course, like all of our features as a whole. We're actually kind of working on building that out a little bit better and making it a little bit more transparent for our stakeholders and everything. So it's kind of an in-progress thing, but we definitely have pretty detailed roadmaps on that. But I feel like not everybody actually looks at it or
Mhm.
pays attention. So we have to work really hard together. If they won't.
Physical force is always a good solution if you need to get people in a room together. Yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah, my boss bribes a lot of people with food. We had some lunch discovery meetings, but now everyone just expects food every time they go to meetings. They're like, where's lunch? It's like, no, not every time, people. And I guess we kind of already talked about this a little bit, but yeah, if anyone else has, check my time. What's my time, Will? Okay, cool. So we have some more time. Does anyone else have any examples or questions or things we'd like to kind of collaborate on as a group? I like this like cross talking. Yes. No, you.
Oh, briefly.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. With our company, at one point, all of our C-level stakeholders, D-level stakeholders signed off on the vision, right? And sometimes they need to just be reminded of that. And sometimes I feel like as a product manager, it's our job to evangelize that vision that they once had. Especially when it comes to our C-level sales, they like to get their hands dirty. They like to do a couple sales here and there, and it always comes back like, hey, this is a high-profile client. We want to land them. And it's like, hey, and the short answer is that data and those reminders really help. And I think as product managers, we have a really valuable opportunity to provide them with that clarity.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to go into detail, but that's what we do.
Yeah, I like that. I think you do need to consistently remind stakeholders of that passion that they had at the beginning of a feature or a project. And it's so hard for us. We get all ramped up and we're like, and it's there. And then we're like, and it's gone. Okay. And then you just like start over again. One thing I like to do with my team is bring back stats. Like, you guys, you realize in the past 3 months, we've grown our retention by 20%. Like, isn't that awesome? Look at all these things we did. And I think that's right. And it helps you refresh too. Like, what you kind of get going, and then you don't spend time looking back and seeing what you've succeeded with. So we're going to start doing like quarterly product demos, so we can sit down and go, here's what we planned out for this quarter. Here were our successes. Here are the things that changed that we weren't expecting to do. Like we had to do a single sign-on, so we had SSO integration for our app. We decided instead of cramming it into the current UI, we're just going to redo the whole login flow and make it better. So that was an unexpected find, but we realized as a team, like, this is a better use of our time as for our users and the experience and the ability to scale, because we're going to have more SSO users, so we need to make room for that. Anyone else? Yes.
About communication and setting expectations, right? Like, I'm sure, like, you have said that you want to win, but then you discover, and this is difficult to understand what the audience or sort of like you do. And then, so how to go about, like, setting those expectations so that, like, everything is designed in the organization and they're, like, not planning really ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So you have, like, any suggestions?
Oh yeah, I mean that's like I just said, like the SSO thing, and we had some other things that we wanted to get done, and I think as a company we kind of stepped back and said, we kind of brought this to them like, hey, maybe we need to redo the sign-in flow, and let's look at these other things we were thinking of working on and see where we can prioritize this and what's going to have the best value for us as a team. Thankfully, my company is fairly agile all around, so people there are really flexible. I don't have to adhere to certain, like, must deploy every 2 weeks, must do these things. We're pretty open. We trust each other to do the best and have the best interest of our users at heart. So that is what it is. I'm kind of lucky. I think my team gets along pretty well. Any other thoughts? I think we've got time for like one more. Questions, comments, musings? Nope. Awesome. Well, I appreciate this. I love you guys communicating with me and feeding back. Again, I have cards here if anyone wants to chat. If you're looking for work and want to come move out to our lovely city, please let me know. Otherwise, have a good lunch.